Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar as you prepare to start working with your students. I'm Graham Thomas. Chrissy is also joining us, our one and only ever executive director here at Tennessee Achieves. And today we are going to have really just a conversation about things that we have learned since we launched the program back in 2008 that we think will help to make you a more successful mentor in 2021. A couple of really quick housekeeping items. As you have probably already noticed, you are muted, but you are able to communicate with us using the chat feature at the bottom as well as the Q&A feature. So really, I've got a few questions for Chrissy to get us kicked off, but we want to make sure we answer as many of your questions as we can. So as you have questions, please type them into those boxes and we're going to get to as many of them as possible. So if it's anything like yesterday, we probably won't be able to get to all of them, but we're going to tackle as many as we can. We do this webinar every single year. I think it's our most popular. We have 500 slots for each one of these, and the 1,000 slots for these were filled up in about 4 hours after we sent the email. So always a popular webinar. We hope that you enjoy it today. A couple of other really kind of mechanical things. One of the big questions we got yesterday is, when are the handbooks going to come? The handbooks will be in the mail soon. Hopefully by the either end of this week or very beginning of next week, they will be in the mail and hopefully arriving to your mailboxes not too long after that. Our plan is to get you your students Friday. It will take a few days for them to trickle into our new Connect feature, which we're going to talk to you about today. And then we're going to send you a very thorough email on Monday, kind of laying out the steps to begin working with them. So today we really kind of want to tackle more of the big picture, how to work with students, general tips. We know that the training has really kind of covered the mechanical side, the kind of how to use all of the pieces. And so today we really want to work on what is it like to work with students, and what can we do, what advice can we give you to hopefully make this the best experience for you in 2021. The mentoring program has been with us since we launched the program as Knox Achieves in Knox County in 2008. So this is 13 years worth of best practices, advice, tips, and hopefully a few things that we've learned along the way. So I'm going to introduce Chrissy now, our executive director. I'm going to let her give you her introduction, but she's been with the program really since this was just an idea on the whiteboard. And I'll go ahead and tee up the first question for you after your introduction, which is, as we were creating Tennessee Achieves 13 years ago, why was it important that there was a mentoring aspect?
Sure. Thanks, Graham, and good morning. I see everyone has their coffee with them this morning, so thanks for joining us as we talk about the 2021 season of Tennessee Achieves. We're thrilled that you are partnering with us on this journey to serve students across Tennessee. I think the mentoring has been so critical since we launched the program in 2008. If you roll back in time to Knox Achieves, when we funded last dollar scholarships to community and technical colleges for Knox County students only with private dollars, it was always a critical pillar to include a volunteer mentoring program, someone to walk alongside the students as they transitioned from high school to post-secondary. When I think about those early days, it's a very different culture than what we have now with Tennessee Promise, but still a universal program. We wanted to allow every student in Knox County to have the opportunity to earn a college credential, tuition and fee free. We knew that the funding would be the carrot that brought students and families to our program, so a really crucial part. I always think about those sort of kitchen table conversations that students are perhaps having with their families about paying for college. I remember having that conversation with my parents growing up. And so we wanted to eliminate the if college was an option and really allow students to start talking about where they were going to college. And the funding part provided us that narrative, that change in culture, that change in narrative that we were looking for. We also had a second pillar, which was community service. As you all know, we are nearly at 3 million hours of community service given back by our students, which is truly incredible. Randy Boyd, our chairman, says we're the largest community service organization in the state. And I don't know if that's actually true, but if Randy says it, we'll claim it, that's at least for this morning. But finally, and I think what has been the most important piece of the program has been our volunteer mentoring program, specifically designed for Tennessee Achieves. When you talk about mentoring, it means a lot of different things to different people. But for us, again, it was to be an encourager, to say we can do this together, that you can overcome the obstacles that are presented to you as you do make that transition. It's about nudging, right? It's about being that task manager and ensuring students are meeting critical deadlines. And finally, it's about being a resource. Many of our students are the first in their family to go to college, and things like, what's a bursar? Can be very confusing, intimidating to students. I know plenty of students who have walked away because they felt like they were the only student that had a silly question. And so the mentor really is there to provide that encouragement, to be that task manager, and to answer those questions. We certainly don't believe that our mentors need to know all the answers to all the questions, and that's why our team is here. But I am certain, without a doubt, and if you look at other states and communities who've lifted up similar promise programs, they're not seeing the success that we're seeing in Tennessee. And I believe it's because we have all these additional layers of support, particularly our mentoring program.
Yeah, so you talked a little bit about the role of the mentor, really the three roles that we've always asked our mentors to play. So keeping students on track, being available as a resource, and then providing that encouragement that unfortunately many of them just don't get at home. I think for the last 12 or so years now, I've gone out and really told mentors that the encouragement piece is what I think is the most important piece of this. Yes, keeping them on track. Yes, being available to answer questions. But as students are continuing to navigate these uncertain times in the midst of a worldwide pandemic, hopefully there's some light at the end of the tunnel. But facing challenges that none of us have ever faced, what do you think is the most important role for our mentors in 2021?
Well, I agree with you that the encouragement piece has always been the most important element. I believe the nudging, the task manager component, as well as the resource component are also very vital to the success of this journey for students. However, I cannot stress enough the power of encouragement. Someone to say we can do this together can be really powerful for students who maybe their family discounts education altogether. Maybe they've been told they're not college material. Maybe they've never really thought about college, and you are entering their life at a very critical time, especially during the pandemic. Right now, in full disclosure, and I continue to sort of shout this from the rooftops, our students feel more distant and disengaged than they ever have with regards to the post-secondary journey. I think the mentor relationship will be so critical this year to ignite that fire in students, to normalize college. I think will also be an incredibly important component. I often think about, and I said this yesterday, you know, I was sort of a nerd growing up. So I graduated at the top of my class from Warren County High School and felt pretty good about my academic prowess going into college. And then I failed my first math test, like really failed my first math test. I didn't do great on my first paper. You know, all these things that I anticipate our students will also encounter. And to say, like, I've been there too. Like, I was there too. I didn't knock it out of the park my first semester. If you did, congratulations to you. But I know very few people, those who were the first in their family, but those who both their parents went to college, that really feel good about their first semester of college. And truly, if you can get students over that first semester hump, that is a win. And so we ask mentors to provide us with a 1-year commitment, that second semester of senior year, through that transition. The transition over the summer is so critical. And so mentors hanging in and checking in with students during that time will be incredibly impactful. And then once they land in post-secondary, continuing to check in with that student, again, normalizing and continuing to remind that student why they made this choice to go.
So you talked a lot about our mentors working with students, the role that they play. You've mentioned the importance of reaching out and building that relationship. One of the things that we hear from mentors every single year is that our students can be really hard to reach. Specifically, I think the student that needs a mentor the most probably doesn't realize that they need a mentor. So talk to us about some of the challenges that we've heard mentors face, and tips and advice you have for communicating with Tennessee Promise students.
Yeah, I agree. The student that needs you the most will most likely be the student who is the least communicative. And that's why you have to hang in, dig in, call, text, email. Understand that these students are 17 and 18 years old. You are the adult in the relationship. And so digging in is incredibly important. To Graham's point, the students didn't ask for a mentor. What we have found is that oftentimes the student who does require that additional support and scaffolding is not the first to feel really comfortable raising their hands for that help. And so we provide the mentor, which can be really frustrating to our mentors, in full disclosure, but we provide the mentor so that it's someone local, someone who's potentially walked the walk or shops at the same grocery store, or you have a shared experience because you come from the same community, maybe graduated from that same high school. You don't have to have that shared experience with your students, but it is helpful to start trying to find those relatable components with your student. What we hear is texting works. I see that all the time with the work that we're doing internally. Personalized, targeted text messaging, not group text messaging. Don't put all 10 of your students on one text message and expect them to be super responsive to that. I would say start to get to know your student, make notes about the student. So does Graham really likes UT football, for example? That's a true statement if you don't know Graham. And so you could ask Graham about UT football or UT sports in general, right? Start to learn the things about your students. And when you are asking questions about the student, it doesn't all have to be academic. What we're trying to build is a relationship between students and mentors, not a deep dive. You don't have to go deep with your students, but if you want your students to be responsive, personalized, targeted text messages, asking your students to respond to you is also, especially in the beginning, a really important component. My suggestion would also be to be true and authentic. There's no students an academic now, right? Like you want them to get to know you. So as vulnerable as you feel comfortable, that would be the place I would start. When I talk to students, I always talk about the fact that I grew up in McMinnville, Tennessee, small town, rural Tennessee, that no one in my family went to college. I really do try to find relatability with the students, and not everyone has my story. Graham wasn't the first person in his family to go to college. And so you have to navigate that path, but feel really comfortable talking about it. Maybe you changed your major 5 times, right? I changed mine 3 times, and I'm very open with students about not having to identify exactly what you want to be when you grow up before you go to college. Having a plan or a path is important. So again, personalized, targeted, being really vulnerable and upfront about why you're doing it. Ask the students why they want to go to college. Get to know those students. I would also say we've launched, as all of you know who have trained, we've launched Connect, which is this amazing tool, another tool in your toolbox where you'll be able to log in and see where your students are in real time and use that information. If your student has an anticipated college of, let's say, the University of Tennessee, ask the student if that's where they're planning to go, right? This is oftentimes referred to, especially external to Tennessee, as sort of a funneling of students into community and technical college. Tennessee Promise is all about community and technical colleges. And yes, that's where most of the last dollar scholarship applies. We really just want mentors to be a presence in students' lives while they make this transition. That's the most important part. And then when it's time to finally decide, the students have had support and they can then go to the college that's the right fit for them. But I would always say, don't let the 17-year-old hurt your feelings. They're not going to be as responsive as you would like for them to be. But again, hang in there with them. You may be the first person that ever took a vested interest in their educational journey. So keeping that in mind will be critical.
Yeah, while you were talking, I was reminded of the story that your father-in-law, who's mentored with us for several years, always talks about sitting around a table in a high school cafeteria at Powell High School in Knoxville, having a hard time connecting with the students. And so he talked to them about the soccer match that he had watched the day before. And a student had watched the soccer match, and then he learned that a couple of the students in his group were on the basketball team. And what started as a conversation about sports turned into a really robust conversation about where they wanted to go to college, what their goals were, and what they were hoping to achieve. And I think for a long time, we made the mistake as a program of making mentors feel like they could only talk about college. And that relationship piece is so important. I'm going to save most of the questions for the end, and I am seeing your questions in the box, in the chat boxes below, but there were a couple questions and it feels like we're timely for this topic, asking about communicating with parents. What advice do you have for that?
Absolutely communicate with the parents. You may not hear back from the parents, but my suggestion would be to email and text the parents to let them know that your name is Chrissy and that you are the volunteer mentor with Tennessee Achieves that will be there to answer your student questions, as well as any questions the parents may have. What you may find is that the students will utilize you as more of a resource than the parents may utilize you as more of a resource than the students. Oftentimes, this is very much welcomed by the parent, but I would 100% make sure before you reach out to the student that you are connecting with that parent, just to say, this is who I am. I will be reaching out to your student. Please let me know if you have any questions. Here's my email address, whatever the case may be, however you feel comfortable being communicated with. I would make that aware to the parent on the front end.
So you also mentioned our new online mentoring platform, Connect. Why Connect? Why this year? And what are the benefits that you think mentors will reap from this product that we've invested in?
We are so excited about Connect. I mean, just so excited. I feel like this is such a labor of love that began, nearly a year ago. It was nearly 1 year ago this month that we made the really hard decision to scrap 9 months of work planning our team meetings. It's a very large lift to plan the mentor and student interfaces that happen in March and April across the state. But we wanted our staff and our mentors and our students and K-12 administrators, everyone involved, to be safe. And so when we made the decision, I will tell you from that moment on, it became a lot of reactive decisions from us for about 6 weeks. And anyone who knows me or knows the Tennessee Achieves team, we don't like being behind. We like being in front, and we like making proactive decisions. We like thinking about things and being disruptive and being creative and innovative. And reaction was not my favorite piece of last year's puzzle. And so we began identifying platforms with the understanding that we may be in this pandemic for a while, but this relationship between students and mentors was too critical to even scrap for a year. We had to figure out how to make this meaningful and impactful for our students and for our volunteers who are so important to us. And so we have launched, very specific to Tennessee Achieves, Connect, which we believe to be a really amazing resource for students and mentors. Not only can you see your student information for the first time in real time, but you can also connect with your students via the platform, which I think is really incredible. We're also going to be able to, the first time, really see that student mentor interaction, how often students and mentors are interacting, how that interaction is going. We're able to provide resources through this tool. So it really is in many ways a one-stop shop for our mentors, which, Graham, I feel like they've been asking us for a long time. And so this is our first year. We are learning the process, and we want to hear from you. We want to hear your honest feedback about how it's working and how it's not working. We got the question yesterday, do we believe that students will actually use the platform? And the answer is yes, I hope they do. We've invested a lot of time and resource. We're certainly going to be working it hard on our end as well. This is not a, hey, students, there's a platform available. We really have a campaign planned to nudge and encourage students to connect with their mentors via Connect. And so we're excited, we're thrilled, we're a little terrified, in full disclosure, to see how it goes. But we're ultimately really excited about, again, another tool in the toolbox. Understanding that you can still text, you can still email, you can still call, if that's what you feel comfortable doing. But this, again, is sort of, as I continue to say, another tool in the mentor toolbox.
Yeah, I think Connect really is going to give mentors access to students in a way that they've never had before. You're going to see the scheduling tool in there is really easy to use, and it's going to allow you and students to find common times to meet and get together. It also gives you access to our program, to our staff that you've never had before. And Chrissy referenced that for many, many years, mentors have been asking for a better way to track their students. And that is what you formerly know as the mentor portal, which Matt on our team made. He created that to the best of his ability with the tools that we had. And this is really going to bring it to an entirely different level. And I really think you're going to like it. So hopefully you've been in there poking around. And if not, when you get your students here in a couple of days, you get to get in there and really see what it can do.
Most things are made by our incredible team. I don't know if the mentors know that, but we have this really incredible, bright, smart, creative, disruptive team. And you mentioned Matt, who continues to build things that are really making our mentor and student and internal lives so much easier, but really is an incredible team we have here. Just want to give a little morning shout out to the Tennessee Achieves staff.
Shout out to Matt this morning.
Shout out to Matt.
One more question for you, and then we're going to get to audience questions.
Sure.
So you mentioned that 2020 felt very reactive for us. I feel like we're very much back in the proactive space in 2021, got our feet under us with the pandemic. And we've launched the Find Your Why campaign. So tell us a little bit about where did that idea come from, and how mentors can use the Find Your Why campaign to shape their experience in 2021.
Yeah, Find Your Why, came from this continued internal tug of just a sense that students were, as I said earlier, felt more distant, felt more disengaged than we had seen in the past. It also came from students who chose not to begin in the fall because of really yearning for a normal college experience. I put that in all sorts of air quotes, whatever normal means, on campus, right, in person. And so Find Your Why was really sort of born out of this idea that we feel like all students have some sort of intrinsic motivation to begin the process. You have completed an application to Tennessee Promise, for Tennessee Promise. It's really incredible. We've been running some numbers, and 89.4% of high school seniors come through the Tennessee Achieves program every year, 90%, which is really incredible. So we have the opportunity to impact 90% of high school seniors every year with regards to this post-secondary credential journey. But the sense was that they didn't quite have a sense of purpose quite like before. And so the Tennessee Achieves team really pulled our heads together in December and January, and on February 1st launched Find Your Why. It is a very student voice oriented campaign to help students identify or ignite or reignite what I often refer to as that fire in your belly. What is it that wakes you up, gets you excited, and allows you to overcome obstacles that are inevitable for any student who is making this journey? And so to inform this work, we texted our students. Remember, text messaging works. We text messaged the 2020 cohort as they were in their first semester of college and said essentially like, listen, there is a pandemic going on. You were forced into online learning. This is not what you chose. Tell us why you went. you chose anyway, like you persevered, you overcame, we're so inspired by you, but we want to know your why. And we received over 4,000 responses from those students, which was just incredible. And it was everything from, I want to prove to myself, I have something to prove to my family, I want a brighter future, I want a better job. It was these really incredible answers that we heard from students and also from parents. We also asked the parents. And so Find Your Why was really built off, again, off that student voice. We allowed students to inform this campaign. We are asking mentors and students and parents to participate in videos talking about their why. And the whole idea is to find relatability for that 2021 cohort. We want to ensure that the 21 cohort, if they want to go to college, that we want to remind them of the importance. And we're, grown-ups, and they don't like listening to grown-ups, but they do listen to their peers. And so we hope that the students find this inspiring. We have a new theme every month. Last month was about breaking family cycles, right? If you were the first in your family, we had some really incredible stories from students come from that. This month, it's better job, brighter future, which I think is amazing. And so we'll continue to revisit these themes throughout the summer into September. But the mentor can play such an incredible role, especially in the beginning, by identifying that why. So that first meeting with your students is about getting to know your students, right? Like the narrative is like, this is who I am, and this is why this is important to me. Who are you, and why is college important to you? And capturing that, I do believe, will inform and cultivate this relationship that you will have with your students through the end of the academic year or calendar year.
So we're going to tackle some of your questions now. Jan asked a really good question early on in the panel here. Says the pandemic has certainly changed the program and had its challenges, but there are benefits with regard to access while being virtual. Is it possible that Tennessee Achieves might be hybrid in the future?
Yes, definitely hybrid, but we are going to return to in-person. I mean, I miss being in front of students. I said this yesterday, and I believe it and mean it, is that it is one of my favorite things to walk into a jammed cafeteria, and it's a little sweaty, and we don't know that everyone's going to fit, but I love that it feels like culture shifting to me when we do that. And I see that these students are engaging with their mentors, or even the ones that have their like hoodie on and their head down. They're absorbing, they're there, and they're absorbing in their own way. And so that energy I miss, and we will bring that back to the program. But Connect is not going away. We have invested in this tool for the long term. Again, with tweaks. Everything at Tennessee Achieves starts off as a pilot, and we're going to make it better every year and as we go. We're not afraid of change here. And so we're excited to continue with Connect going forward. But in-person meetings will return, make no mistake about it. I can't wait to get back into the field.
Todd has a question about advice you might have or suggestions for working with parents that maybe are not super receptive or have asked you not to contact their student or that you can't get a hold of.
Yeah, great question. I would say if the parent asks you not to engage with the student, the first thing to do is to let Tennessee Achieves know that. Don't fight that battle on your own. Allow us to help you thread that needle and tackle that challenge. We've been doing that for a long time. And oftentimes it's just a fear and an intimidation from the parent about maybe they don't want their child to move away from them. Maybe it's a culture piece. My grandfather, I remember when I went to college, said to me, don't get above your raisin. And so, I think that there is still some of that sort of, that still exists, not just in Tennessee, across the country. And so allow us to help you navigate if the parent just flat out says, do not communicate anymore with my student. If you have a parent that's just maybe hesitant, I would continue to talk about why you chose to mentor, why education is important, how you can help not only the student, but the parent also navigate. Oftentimes, I think when parents are resistant, it's because they're afraid. It's not because they don't want their student to go to college or to fulfill their potential. And so it's just, it's a journey that we can make with the parent. It just may take us longer to get there, and it's not always a straight line.
So I've seen we have several questions and quite a bit of conversation in the chat box about community service. Why do you think community service is important? And then why is it a part of our program? And there is a question about how do you convey the importance of community service to students so that it doesn't just feel like they're checking the box?
There's like 7 questions. So
a lot of community service buzz in the chat today.
Got it. Yes. Honestly, when we first launched Knox Achieves and Randy Boyd, who is forever a Boy Scout, said, let's attach 8 hours of community service to this program, I thought, ooh, really? Like something else for the students to do. But I was quickly brought on board when I realized the immense benefit that the students were receiving from, for the first time for many of them, getting out and experiencing these amazing organizations throughout their community. I think it's eye-opening. I mean, we ask the students to reflect every time they submit a community service hour, and the reflections are truly incredible about how eye-opening the experience was for them. I will tell you this also, we never would have passed, I believe this truly, Tennessee Promise without the community service attachment to it. In Tennessee, we don't like giving things away. So free college is not something we like to talk about outside of the audience of students and parents. And so the idea is that students will begin cultivating this culture of giving back. We hope that they love it so much that this continues into adulthood. My favorite part, and I know many of my team members share this, is that you can also job shadow as community service at Tennessee Achieves. And we have these job shadow days that we work with major employers to open their doors for our students. I think about growing up in rural Tennessee as a first generation student, and I didn't know that you could be the executive director of a nonprofit. I had truly no idea that was even a job available. And I can't tell you, there's not a girl on the planet that loves her job more than I do. And so the idea that we could open up these doors for students so they can heighten awareness of what does exist if they earn a college degree, again, is find your why, lights up in that belly. And so we think community service is just a truly incredible component of the work we do. And like I said, nearly 3 million hours given back, which is just kind of hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah, someone just put in the chat box how they feel like the mentors can be such, I'm reading it again real fast, can really help them make professional connections. And, that's a part of community service and job shadowing that our mentors, you help us find those things. That list of community service opportunities that we have on our website, many of those come from mentors that put those on our radar. The job shadowing opportunities that are available, most of them are mentors that have offered to let students job shadow them. The companies that provide those job shadow days usually have mentors that we work with to schedule those. So certainly the role that you play can help open up those professional opportunities for students that they may not know exist. And I think specifically in rural Tennessee, that can be really, really important in places where it feels like maybe all that you can do with the degree is be a teacher or a doctor or nurse, maybe a lawyer, helping to expand their opportunities outside of some of those things. We have,
and and you were here for all of this, Graham, but in the early days of Knox Achieves, we would spend a full day each semester and invite students to join us to do community service. We've sort of exploded since then, and we should take a step back and maybe revisit that. But it was some of my most fun memories of being here for the past nearly 14 years now, as those times when we were at the park with students picking up trash, or at Second Harvest, all these places where we met students and really dug in on community service became a great bonding opportunity. So mentors, if you're already participating in some type of community service, obviously COVID I know has sort of disrupted that, but once we get back, invite your students to join along. I think it'd be a really great relationship building experience.
We've got several questions about ways to contact and meet students. One about how often, one about is Zoom or video chats okay, and then one which we had yesterday, if students and the mentors are comfortable meeting in person, socially distanced, is that okay?
Yes, great questions. Yes, let me answer first. Virtual is great. You can do that through Connect, but you could also FaceTime with your students, right? Like what or Zoom or whatever the multiple platforms are. We would hope you would utilize Connect in that way, but obviously meeting virtually with students is strongly encouraged. We're doing it every day. We're filing FAFSAs, like thousands of FAFSAs virtually right now. And so virtual seems to be the way of the world at this point. So strongly encourage that. In terms of cadence, when you do receive your mentor handbook, it will lay out an every 2-week schedule for you that provides you with, okay, on this week, this is the nudge, 2 weeks later, here's the nudge, 2 weeks later. So we say about every 2 weeks to reach out to the students. If I were you and you keep a calendar, I would just write it in my calendar. So that's, the first thing maybe you do in the morning. Typically the students though tend to be more responsive later in the afternoon. So just a heads up there. But as a reminder to you, you can use the guidance we've provided you, but make sure again that you personalize that. And so keeping all of that in mind, I think will be incredibly important. But yes, virtual, I would say hang with us virtually until at least the summer with regard to those socially distanced in-person meetings. We want to keep you safe. We want to keep our students safe, and we don't want to put anyone in a situation where they're telling their mentor they feel uncomfortable because of COVID. And so I would say, let's stay virtual, utilizing Connect for now. But when it is time, and I feel like that is coming for us sooner rather than later, we will find a way to get back to in-person.
We had someone ask about opportunities to connect with other mentors. Historically, we have hosted a mentor breakfast every year around this time. All 13 community colleges host those for us. So with COVID, those have gone away for this year, and hopefully we'll be back to those next year. Connect is also going to allow you to connect with other mentors. As we're going through this process, and as you are becoming more and more familiar with the platform, there's going to be things that we can provide for you that aren't necessarily turned on right now. We're going to kind of give it to you in small pieces so that you can get comfortable first working with students, but ultimately we can open the platform up so you can connect with other mentors. Something that we implemented due to COVID that I think we will be bringing back soon are our mentor hours. So we have hours, we were doing them every day of the week, and then we moved them down to 1 day a week, and maybe next week we'll provide you with several opportunities for this. But it's an opportunity for you to hop onto a Zoom, much like this, except your camera and mic is turned on. Tyler, Ben, or I will staff those. You have the opportunity to interact with us, ask us questions, but you also have the opportunity to meet other mentors that are on there. And oftentimes the conversations and the dialogue that the mentors have amongst themselves is better than any advice we can give you because you're actually doing it. We're just telling you what we think works, right? And you are actually participating. So keep an eye out for those opportunities to connect with other mentors. So Chrissy, to wrap it up, final advice, tips, best practices, anything we haven't covered?
I would say just to return to the idea of digging in, we hear time and again from our mentors that the students are not as responsive as you would hope they would be. You also receive a lot of students, right? I mean, it is the nature because think about this, again, 89.4% of high school seniors flow through Tennessee Achieves, many off to Vanderbilt, University of Tennessee, ETSU, the University of Memphis, right? And we're there to support those students, but oftentimes you're going to actually be working with 1 to 2. And so I remember once being at the TCAT Knoxville, waiting on a training to begin, a mentor training to begin. And I heard these 2 mentors who were returning mentors talking about their success as a mentor. and they started talking about it in numbers. Well, I started off with 7 and really ended up working with 2. And the other one's like, well, I started off with 6 and I only worked with 1. And then she said, I mean, I just wasn't very successful. One went to Maryville College. And I was thinking to myself, so I just interrupted them, like, because I'm rude, I suppose. I was like, if they went off to Maryville College, like that is a huge win. So again, the idea is not to take all 10 students and funnel them to the community and technical college. If a student is entering the post-secondary pipeline in the fall, that is like celebratory and exciting, and we are thrilled for that student and their journey. I will say to you that it is by design. We don't give you one student in the beginning because we know the likelihood of working with that one student is slim to none with the odds. Remember, 60,000 students apply and about 18,000 utilize Tennessee Promise every year. It is a serious reduction because students are off to the military. They're off to four-year institutions that are outside of Promise eligibility, all sorts of different reasons. And so one student is a human being that you are affecting. And I wish we could give you all one. So when that one hung on, you would think like, this is amazing, right? But it is amazing. And so don't think about your success as a mentor with the numbers game. One student being responsive, one student that you're digging in with is transformational and life-changing for that student, truly. You're breaking family cycles, you're giving students access to a better career. All those why things we talked about earlier, you are playing a significant role. And as I said, I believe COVID really exaggerates the need for our mentoring program. So we are just overwhelmingly thankful that you have decided, especially this year, with all the chaos that is swirling around the world, that you chose to be with us and you chose to serve and walk alongside our students. We can't thank you enough. And we are here. Lean on us. Don't feel like you have to do this all alone.
Yeah, well, thank you so much Chrissy for joining us this morning and sharing your best practices and advice and tips. For everyone that logged on, for some of you in the Central Time pretty early this morning, thank you so much for being here. We hope that we got most of your questions answered. There were a lot, so probably missed a few along the way, but we appreciate you joining us, being here today and engaging with us. Keep an eye out for your student list. Our goal is to have that list to you on Friday. We are working now to make sure that your students are paired with you from the school and county and where you would like for them to be from. And then hopefully your handbooks will be in the mail at the latest be in the mail next week. So keep an eye out for those, but thank you so much. And we hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, guys.